Hello, and welcome to our interactive leader session. I'm Pat Gould, Managing Director of Marketing and Communications at the SOA. Thank you so much for joining us. If you need technical assistance at any time today, click the Live Support button in the bottom left area of your screen or send an email to soa@compartners.com. You can also download the slides by clicking on the Download Presentation button next to that Live Support button at the bottom left area of the screen. You can also enter a question at any time by clicking on the Ask a Question box and typing your question in that box in the lower right-hand corner, and then just hit the Go button. I'd like to introduce the SOA leaders on today's call. We have Errol Cramer, President of the SOA, Craig Reynolds, President-elect of the SOA, and Greg Heydrich, the Executive Director of the SOA, also joins us. During today's session, we will be recapping the June meeting of the SOA Board of Directors and providing an update on the SOA listening tour that kicked off just a few months ago. We'll also talk about the work being done to update the SOA Strategic Plan. Errol and Craig will discuss the amendment to the SOA bylaws that fellows will be asked to vote on in the upcoming election, and we'll end with a question and answer session. With that, I'll turn it over to Errol.
Thank you, Pat, and good morning or good afternoon as appropriate to everyone. I'll start with the overview of the board meeting. We had it in June, and we had a full agenda. Normally we have a 1.5-day board meeting. We had a 2-day this time, and we discussed and made decisions on a number of important issues. The board approved the 2015-2016 election ballot of endorsed candidates for the board, which was presented to us by the nominating committee. You can view the candidates' backgrounds on soa.org/SOA-elections. And don't forget, voting opens August the 17th and runs until Friday, September the 4th. And I urge you, please vote and please encourage others to vote. The board approved further development of implementation plans for the learning strategy. We are pursuing the task force's 11 initiatives which will guide the future directions of SOA education activities. This work takes into account the many changes occurring in adult education and will bring those developments to SOA members and candidates. An item I would like to call out is the field of data analytics, which is of ever-growing importance to our profession. There are now specific plans to incorporate data analytics into our associate level exams, as well as relevant, into the various fellowship tracks. Also, we will significantly ramp up our learning opportunities for existing members. In terms of opportunities for actuaries, the Cultivating Opportunities team presented to the board a pilot actuarial candidate internship program, which is quite exciting. What it will do is place actuarial candidates within actuarial science data analytic firms. And these are not insurance company firms, but those that specialize in data analytics. This will allow us an opportunity to get feedback from our interns as well as feedback from the firms. So something I applaud the Cultivating Opportunity team for thinking innovatively. The team also discussed the efforts in predictive analytics, including education, content, research, marketing, and specific work being conducted in the sections. The board expressed support for the direction of the team's efforts in 2015 and its expansion in 2016. The board discussed and provided feedback on an interim report of the Actual Diversity Task Force, which, by the way, Craig Reynolds leads, which is helping determine investments and or programs to achieve the greatest impact on diversity in the actual profession, both short and long term. The task force will submit recommendations to the Issues Advisory Council on potential 2016 strategic initiatives related to actual diversity. The China Association of Actuaries recently presented to the board on the CAA's history, primary functions, area of influence, and factors affecting the Chinese actuarial profession. The board witnessed the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two organizations. This agreement with the CAA will deepen our understanding of how the SOA can best serve the growing need for actuaries in China, while continuing to grow the important relationship we currently enjoy with our colleagues at the CAA. Craig?
Hello. I'd like to start off by talking about our listening tour events that we've been commissioning this year. This is a new effort we've undertaken. We've had 15 separate events so far, reaching close to 900 members in person, both in the United States and overseas. There have been a variety of different types of events, including actuarial club meetings, meetings on site at individual companies, dinners, and other small group gatherings. Overall, members have been very supportive of the tour, taking time to openly discuss challenges from a member perspective, and in general have expressed a great deal of appreciation at having the opportunity to discuss these topics one-on-one with SOA leadership. We'll be continuing to schedule these events into the future this year and beyond. The most consistent area of interest and passion from members during the listening tour has been around relationships with other actuarial organizations. There are many different member perspectives brought up during the tour about the cause or current status of conflicts. Members discussed the general insurance track, public policy research, international reach, and also strategy. The tour has helped get this face-to-face feedback and also for us to provide clarity on specific topics such as the ones I just mentioned. I also wanted to add that the SOA continues to partner with the other actuarial organizations, such as on research, educational efforts, and the diversity efforts that Errol was speaking at a few moments ago. We continue to look for opportunities to work productively with these other organizations. Members also expressed their concern about the future of the profession and how actuaries are viewed. The discussions included how non-actuaries are doing actuarial work, how supply could outpace demand, and how the profession must keep up with market needs. They also brought up the need for new actuaries to gain additional business or management experience. Members also expressed the need for better ways to clearly articulate their value to employers and the value of the accreditation. Members requested more direct communication on key issues, particularly ones involving relationships with other actuarial organizations. And that's one of the many reasons why we're continuing with this listening tour. Members would also like to be included in the strategic planning process. We'll be gathering members' views on this as we develop the 2017 to 2020 strategic plan. So on the topic of the plan, I'd like to share some of the next steps for creating the SOA strategic plan. This is a process we go through periodically, and we're a very driven organization, driven very much by how our strategic plan is defined, and we take this effort very seriously. It helps to determine our mission and vision and how we execute our strategy in reaching and helping our key stakeholders. This past spring, the SOA conducted an online survey of our member advisory panel. We found several key takeaways. First, data analytics, changes in regulation and the economy, and demographics are cited as the most important trends driving the actuarial profession. Predictive modeling and data analytics are at the top of the list for the profession's most important opportunities. Problem solving and ethics are top strengths for the profession. Respondents believe that perceptions of poor communication skills and low visibility are the greatest weaknesses of the profession. I'd like to take a moment to share some of the timeline of activities related to this effort. First, we're gathering feedback on the organization's mission and vision from October 2015 through January 2016. By April 2016, we hope to have identified a core list of emerging priorities. And then in June and July of 2016, we'll be providing a draft strategic plan to the board. And we expect that the final strategic plan will be approved around or at the October 2016 board meeting. So with that, I think I pass it back over to Errol.
Okay, thank you, Craig. I would like now to discuss the bylaw amendments, and there will be a vote required of the members on this, but I'd like to give some background and rationale for the entire set of changes that the board considered, and that some of which we are implementing. So, as background, the board appointed and charged a governance task force with looking at ways to modernize and enhance the board's effectiveness. This inquiry included benchmarking against best practices across a broad spectrum of not-for-profit professional organizations. The task force provided its recommendations to the board this past April, and the board adopted a variety of resolutions based on these recommendations. It passed a resolution to reduce the time commitments of the president to make a more reasonable and lesser barrier to attracting future candidates. Currently, the SOA president's year is essentially a full-time commitment, an outlier among virtually every other professional organization for a volunteer role. The intent is for presidential duties to be more evenly distributed among the president-elect, president, and past presidents. It passed a resolution to eliminate the position of penultimate past president, that is, the fourth year of office, thereby reducing by 1 year the time commitment required to be president. Interviews with past SOA presidents indicated that this fourth year was generally not considered particularly rewarding. Many past presidents managed to stay engaged with the SOA on other more directed volunteer positions. This also has the effect of reducing the size of the board by one director. Passed another resolution aimed at reducing the board size by changing the number of board members to be elected each year, beginning in 2015, for this election year, from 6 to 5, thereby ultimately reducing over the next 3 years the number of elected board members by 3. And it passed another resolution to eliminate the vice president's positions. However, this does require approval by fellows of the SOA of a bylaw amendment before it can become effective. If adopted, this would ultimately reduce the size of the board by 6 positions, as the current incumbents serve out their terms. On May 13, the board approved the bylaw changes as needed to implement these resolutions. And as noted above, the SOA membership will be required to approve one of these bylaw changes, and a proxy vote will be conducted during the 2015 annual election process. Note that this will not impact candidates for the 2015 Vice President ballot. I strongly urge fellows to vote for approval of the bylaws amendments. And I would like to tell you a few reasons behind the actions of the board. First, we need to reduce the size of the board. The average size of an association board like the SOA is 16 to 18 members. By comparison, some academic studies indicate an ideal board size for decision-making is 18 to 12 members. We currently have 28 members, and our board is simply too large to have meaningful discussions and debate at a board level. A smaller board would give each member more authority, responsibility, and opportunities to contribute to discussions, leading to more impact on the strategic direction of the organization. Ideally functioning boards are able to delegate significant portions of work to committees and task forces with board oversight, which frees up the board to concentrate on the more strategic and important issues. Second, vice presidents serve no specific or distinct purposes on the board. The vice presidents generally do not have any special duties, responsibilities, or authority on the board other than typically being assigned higher-level duties, such as committee chairs. Also, the president nominates one of these VPs or vice presidents to serve as secretary and treasurer. The typical path for a VP is serving 1 3-year term as an elected board member, followed by a 2-year term as VP. I'd rather see regular board members opt to run for a second 3-year term. And we would then have a range of newly elected to more seasoned board members. Committee chairs and the Secretary and Treasury roles could then naturally carry over to the more seasoned board members. During the Q&A part of the session, I'd be very interested to hear members' views about this proposed bylaw amendment. As noticed, this change requires membership approval, which will be done by proxy at a special meeting to vote on the proposed amendments to the SOA bylaws. As you may know, bylaw amendments that affect members' rights cannot take effect without approval of 2/3 of those who vote, and at least 25% of the eligible voters must vote. Voters will have the opportunity to vote on this amendment in the 2015 election, which will open August 17 and close at 2 p.m. Eastern on September the 14th. And again, I urge you to vote. Thank you. Craig?
Thank you, Errol. I'd now like to move on to talk about the upcoming SOA elections. I hope you'll join me and the candidates for President-elect on an interactive webinar on August 6th at noon Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'll be moderating and asking questions of the candidates to help you, the voters, learn more about their views. More information will be coming soon on how to sign up for that webinar. I hope as many of you as possible sign up. It's one of the best opportunities to learn about the candidates and their concerns and platforms. If you're an eligible voter, please do vote in the upcoming election for the SOA Board and sections. The election opens August 17th and runs until 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, on September 4th. With that, I'll turn the panel over to Pat for our Q&A session.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Errol. We would like now to open up the discussion to your questions. And again, you may submit a question by clicking on the Ask a Question box, typing in your question, and hitting Go. And I think we'll start with a question for both Errol and Craig. During his recap of the listening tour events, Craig mentioned that we've done some events overseas, and I know that both of you have been in Asia over the past few months, and I thought it would be interesting and helpful for members to know where you've been, who you've been meeting with, and what sort of the developments in our international strategy that you're working on as you are there. So, Errol, would you mind starting?
Sure, Pat. As everyone knows, we have a formal listening tour, but in reality, whenever we go out to any stakeholders, we consider it to be a listening tour as well. It has the same elements. We're looking to provide our audience with an overview of our strategic plans and directions, initiatives, and then sit back and listen and hear from them, their views. In Asia, and I made a couple of trips to China, since I guess the last interactive meeting. The trip to Beijing, I met with the China Association of Actuaries, and also had meetings with the Insurance Association of China, which is more of the trade association. We met with the China Beijing Insurance Research Institute, which does insurance research more on a practical basis. As my example, we had Limerick here. And we also met with the Insurance Institute of China, which is a more sort of an academic, university-based research, or just academic. So we certainly met with a broad range of stakeholders. And of course, in Beijing, we did meet with our members. We had a members event and met with some individual groups of members. Shanghai, being China's largest city now, actual population tends to be evenly between Beijing and Shanghai. We had further listening tours with our members. We also had an opportunity to meet with a professor and his staff and some students at length from Shanghai University of Finance and Economics. We had a couple of media interviews. When I say we, actually myself, but I was there with our director, Greg Heinrich, and so in any case, we've certainly had a lot of opportunities to interact with our Chinese members and stakeholders. And I think Craig can also talk about his trips a little bit.
Thank you, Errol. The main overseas trip that I've made was to Taiwan, which was completed fairly recently, and that was designed to line up with the SOA Asia Symposium, which is a big event that happened in Taiwan this year. It was a very successful meeting. I was glad for an opportunity to speak there as one of 3 keynote speakers, and found it to be a very successful program. While there, I also visited one of the local universities, Feng Chao University, which is a program that has had a graduate program in actuarial science for quite a while, but just a couple of years ago created an undergraduate program, and met with and spoke with around 50 undergraduate students that are all freshmen and sophomores right now. They were all uniformly very enthusiastic and very curious about the actuarial profession, a very rewarding experience. While there, I also met with one of the employers to talk with a smaller group of just actuarial students at that shop. And it was, again, a good experience. We find that Taiwan is one of the markets where the SOA is really a very significant force in the market, and the vast majority of actuarial candidates are taking SOA exams. We also used that opportunity for me to have an interview with the China Insurance News, and I believe that shortly the article associated with that will be coming out in the public. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We have a question regarding the recognition of the SOA's general insurance track by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners in the United States. And I know, Greg, you've been closely involved in those sorts of efforts. So would you mind giving an update on that?
Sure, I'm happy to do so, Pat. We continue to work with the NAIC, and in particular its Casualty Actuarial and Statistical Task Force on this activity. This is, just by way of context, this is aimed at asking the NAIC to amend the instructions for signing property casualty insurance financial statements to allow someone who earns an FSA in general insurance from us to sign those statements. It's an important activity. About 900 or 1,000 people in the U.S. apparently do that work today. So we continue to work with the NAIC on this. We've provided extensive documentation and information to them for the purpose, and we're now urging that they also complete an independent third-party assessment of our track, which will help them make a decision on this. We're very proud to have granted 2 FSAs in general insurance so far, and we have another 80 to 90 people who are working their way through this pathway at this point. And of course, we continue to build and promote the track and know it'll be a very important part of the SOA in the future. So thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Greg. We're getting some questions in about the listening tour, and I think it would be helpful. Errol and Craig have both done a number of these events. Ev has some others. If you wouldn't mind talking about some of the visits that you've done and where they've been. Someone asked specifically where we've been, and wanted also to know, we've talked a little bit about, I think, the United States, that we've done a number here. Errol talked about his visits in Asia during his trips, but specifically, what are our plans to also meet with our members in Canada? So, Craig, if you wouldn't mind kicking off the discussion of where some of these events have been held, that'd be helpful.
Thank you. One of the things we've done with the listening tours to make the effort manageable is to spread the duties across a number of people. Errol and I have both done a number of events, but there are 2 or 3 or 4 other board members that are either scheduled to have such events or have already done so, or both. Some of the places that I've specifically spoken to besides Taiwan that I mentioned already, I spoke at the Hartford Actuaries Club, and at the time of the Hartford Actuaries Club visit, also arranged visits to several Hartford area actuarial employers for visits on site with their staff. Generally, those have been with smallish groups of 5 to 15 actuaries where they're on site at companies. I also spoke with a number of thought leaders in the actuarial profession in Washington, D.C. while I was there. Those were both very successful meetings. Some of those have been on-site meetings during the day, and on a couple of occasions we've had dinner meetings at night with smaller groups. We also have plans underway to do some visits in Canada, which is something we didn't talk about earlier. And also worth mentioning related to that both Errol and Greg and I, all three of us, attended the CIA 50th anniversary meeting, which was, I believe, last month, very, very recently in an event. So we'll be starting to have listening tour events there as well as part of our ongoing effort to reach out to Canadian members.
Thanks, Greg. I've been to a variety of them. I won't try and list them all, but I'll just call out a few of them. I was up in Minnesota and met with a couple of groups. One, a dinner with chief actuaries and chief executives of major insurers there. And then I had a opportunity to address the Twin Cities Actuarial Club, which I was very impressed. Enormous turnout and overflow, and we had to set up speakers outside of the main auditorium. Very much people showing a lot of interest in attending these events. Also had a very well attended, successful meeting with the Southeastern Actuarial Club, SEAC, in Hilton Head Island. So it was a nice location, one of the few times I can actually have a little bit of a beach scenery as well as just a meeting. I also attended a listening tour event I was invited to at State Farm. I'm stationed here at Allstate, and State Farm's a neighbor of ours, not too far away, a couple of 100 miles. So got to speak to the actuaries there, which was another perspective, people who work within a PNC and a life environment. We have a meeting coming up next month of major employers, and again, we'll take that as an opportunity to talk with them. I did mention some Malaysia trips. I guess I should have also mentioned I met with members in Hong Kong. That's another big market for us. To be honest, I haven't scheduled a specific meeting in Canada, but if there's interest, and I know I have some other meetings up in Canada for other reasons, it's actually a good reminder. I did go to the Canadian Institute's 50th anniversary, and did get an opportunity to speak to many members informally or just through ad hoc meetings. But by and large, I can say that we've had very good turnouts, and the feedback is very appreciative of these meetings. Pat?
Thanks, Errol. And I would just add that as Craig mentioned, I think we are asking other board members to also do some of these visits, and we have had a number of visits in the Chicago area at companies as well as just member events, and among others, we are planning a couple of stops on the West Coast, California, I know for sure. I think we're scheduling that for the end of August. So please keep your eyes open for any events in your area, because we certainly would love to have as many members participate as they can. Staying on the topic a bit of the listening tour and what we're hearing there, Errol, when Craig was talking about the major issues and themes that are coming up, one of them has consistently been relationships with other organizations. Can you talk a bit from your perspective of having been in the presidential offices for 2 years, how you see those relationships developing, and what some of the areas are that we are working together?
Sure, Pat. I was struck by how testy some of the relationships have been, certainly when I started. Although in reality, there's often a lot of relationship management issues that have to be done with any organization. So it really wasn't something that I thought was unusual, that couldn't be improved, but certainly some area that we wanted to focus our attention on. I do want to say that we certainly at the collaborative level, we are working closely with all the organizations. We have in the past, we still continue, and we strengthen that. We're certainly working closely and collaboratively with the Casualty Actuarial Society. We have many matters of mutual interest. This includes the Joint Risk Management section, the RM Symposium, efforts to promote diversity in the actuarial profession. We had mentioned that Craig leads a diversity task force. The Casualty CAS have put one of their members on it, so we can work in collaboration with them. We also have ongoing work we do with the American Academy of Actuaries on a number of projects. The upcoming ones will be the life expectancy calculator and experience tables, the 2014 valuation basic table, and now the 2017 CSO table. We also work on joint projects with others besides the CAS Academy. We're working on the Actuaries Climate Index, and this is a joint research project on severe weather with the CAS Academy, the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. We jointly presented our results at the last meeting of the International Actuarial Association. It was very well received. On the international front, the SOA, together with the CAS and CIA, Canadian Institutes of Actuaries, proposed a global State of the Actuarial Profession survey, and the International Association of Actuaries has agreed to sponsor this, so it will move forward. The SOA and China Actuarial Association, as I may have mentioned, we signed a memorandum of understanding. We're moving on this together with the China Actuarial Association and LIMRA. We're going to start a joint study on the China retirement market. Anyway, just to let you know that certainly a lot of activities are happening in terms of joint working relationships. In terms of personal relationships, certainly there's a warming and an approachability. We have the Conference of U.S. Presidents where we have an opportunity to meet. Unfortunately, scheduling did not allow me to fit in another meeting, which we're hoping to in a short period, but we will be meeting later in the year at our regular time. And certainly we are moving forward on ensuring we all pull together, at least in the U.S., to work on behalf of the profession as a whole, realizing we may have our own strategic objectives and we need to pursue them, but we can still do so collegially. Matt?
Thanks, Errol. Craig, can you talk a bit about volunteering with the SOA and how we're creating opportunities? The question actually had to do with how we're engaging younger members in the profession and getting them involved with the SOA, but I think maybe the volunteering might be one area you'd want to focus on.
Be happy to. There's no doubt that the SOA is a volunteer-driven organization. It's vital to how we run our education and our research functions, and a huge portion of our members are involved in volunteer activities. We have a variety of standing processes going to source and encourage volunteerism. That said, we've been exploring ways to further increase the number of members who are volunteering, and we believe that catching people at the beginning part of their careers is key to encouraging that to happen. Starting someone off young with volunteer opportunities is probably the best way to encourage a career-long commitment to the profession and to the SOA. I know in my own case, I started off volunteering on an exam committee almost immediately after passing my fellowship, and that's a fairly common track for people to follow. A specific program we're exploring is something we call micro-volunteering, where the commitments are for short, brief periods and should fit better with younger members who often have limited available time with new careers and families. We're initiating the micro-volunteering idea with the SOA professional interest sections where we feel there will be lots of opportunities. The micro-volunteering approach is one of the recommendations to the board from the SOA Member Engagement Task Force, and is one of many different techniques we're using to try to further attract volunteers to the organization.
Yeah, this is Greg. One point I might add to Craig's comment is we do have also a very active program to reach out to candidates that we began a couple of years ago now called the Candidate Connect program, we're holding 4 to 5 full events a year now on this, which gives an opportunity for candidates, typically those who are about halfway through the pathway or just a little bit before associate level, to interact with our volunteers and to start getting this message that Craig's talking about, the importance of volunteering in their careers really early at the point they're pursuing a career in the actuarial profession.
But towards that end, Greg, I'd just like to comment that I've attended a number of those Candidate Connect events and found them to be energizing and inspiring. There are a large number of very committed and very exciting candidates attending the sessions. Interestingly, they're attracting a large number of career changers, people that are not just fresh out of school, but people that have been working in a number of areas, engineering or business or accounting for a number of years and are now interested in switching into the actuarial profession. And it's a good opportunity for us to talk to them about what it means to be an actuary and start helping them with their initial network and connection to the organization.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Greg. Errol, one of the topics that we talked about was the next strategic plan, and you and Craig talked about how the board is very guided by what is in the strategic plan and pursuing our strategy. Can you talk a little bit about how often the initiatives that we pursue and the goals that we're focused on, how often those get reviewed?
Sure. Well, in terms of how often, it's a continual process of maintaining the SOA strategic goals. Once we determine a strategic plan, that's generally in place for 3 to 4 years. For example, we're currently working under the 2013 to 2016 strategic plan. And what we're now working on is developing the new plan for 2017 to 2020. Even though 2015 seems a long lead time, in reality there's a lot of work that goes in terms of scanning the environment, speaking to stakeholders, evaluating the pros and cons, the risk management, also getting the views of the members, the consensus of members, because essentially we need to have a plan that our members will support. So the board does have a strategic plan task force that has been appointed. It's headed by not a member of our board, but one of our esteemed members, Bob Stein, who's retired now, but retired as vice chair of Ernst & Young. And they deep into the fact-gathering stage. They're reaching out to various stakeholders, employers, academics, policymakers, public, and of course, will be to members. Now, any changes to the strategic plan will include an exposure draft process for members and others to share their feedback. And that'll be sometime in 2016 before we come out with any formal processes. And of course, 2017 is when our plan becomes effective.
Thanks, Errol. Craig, can you talk a bit about any enhancements, any activities in our research area that are worth noting?
Well, over the past year and looking to the future, there's several things underway in how the SOA develops, funds, and releases research and research studies. The research spans many different interest areas, challenges, and trends. And one recent example of that is an essay collection on predictive analytics, which is a field that is somewhat new to the SOA. We also, on that topic, recently released a study on applying predictive modeling to long-term disability pricing. And I imagine we'll see more work in that area going forward. The SOA continues to conduct in-house research, such as on the potential for pent-up demand of health exchanges and the upcoming study on multi-employer pension plan stress metrics. We're also completing and updating experience studies on a range of topics and fields, including the 2014 Valuation Basic Table and the 2017 CSO Table, as well as studies on long-term care policy termination. We'll work closely with the sections on exploring new research opportunities and ideas Sections are a key source of ongoing research activity, both in terms of funding and management of those projects, as well as with the SOA Research Executive Committee and the Research Expanding Boundaries Pool. The SOA Research staff consistently reviews what projects sections want to pursue and coordinates this research with them. For example, the SOA worked with the financial reporting section on the report Transition to a High Interest Rate Environment. The product development, smaller insurance company, and international sections research are sponsoring a potential study project to examine the product development process for life insurance. We regularly partner with other organizations as well, both inside and outside of the profession, in pursuing necessary research. For example, the SOA partners with the Stanford Center on Longevity on retirement planning research. We work with the Canadian Institute of Actuaries on Canadian pension research, and we work jointly with the Academy, the CIA, and the CAS on the upcoming Actuaries Climate Index project, which analyzes severe weather in the United States and Canada, and in particular the volatility in weather trends. There's a continuous cycle of research activities. We keep older activity studies available on SOA.org for reference and convenience. And we have an Experience Studies Oversight Group that helps add an overarching member perspective as to what the SOA should study, how frequently, what new studies to add, what completed studies are no longer pertinent, and so forth.
Great. Thanks very much, Craig. Greg, we've had a question regarding the process for members attending the meetings of the SOA Board of Directors. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure, no problem. Board meetings are, of course, held for the purpose of getting the board's work done. That's the reason we hold them. Having said that, members can request an opportunity to attend any board meeting, and those requests are typically granted. If a member is interested in doing that, they should contact the SOA's Director of Governance, Sherry Baker. Of course, at any meeting there are some issues the board is discussing that are confidential in nature, as with any board, but with those noted, members do have opportunities to attend, and that's the process. Just send a note to Sherry Baker and ask.
Great, thanks a lot. Well, we've come to the end of our time together today. I'd like to thank our members who participated in today's webinar. Your participation, thoughtful questions are very much appreciated. And of course, thanks to Errol, Craig, and Greg. Now, there will be a short evaluation survey at the end of this webinar. We certainly welcome your comments and feedback as we continue to look for opportunities to enhance our dialogue with you, our members, and others. Thanks so much, and have a great day, everyone.